Verarut unasvi. Life seems to be the one expressing as the many. Rather, it is the many expressing as the one. In your reality, you are all that is. Relationships therefore do not exist. Ka'arat savavi. All mysteries are already known to the infinite. Our quest for freedom from the dream has been fulfilled. There is no mystery, no duty, just the joy of living. Within your current states of consciousness, you are harboring completely misconstrued notions about reality. Reality is the greater universe your soul atom sees on the other side of the veil after death. You are aware of only the third dimensions. Reality consists of 18 dimensions. Dimensions include the 15-dimension Holy Trinity, the materialized 14-dimensional projection of the Holy Trinity, known as creation, or the cube, the sphere of the Alpha and Omega. From the first to the 13-dimensional material projection of the Holy Trinity is known as creation. In reality, the creators are known as the Alpha and the Omega, the Father and the Mother, the intelligent breath and substance. Your lesser world precepts of reality refer to the Creator as God. God is your greater faith looking towards our Creator's Alpha and Omega. In their whole expression of Alpha and Omega are the totality of reality. In their whole dimensionality, they are all 18 dimensions. In 18 dimensions, they are the original great pool of darkness comprising of only intelligent breath and tiny particles of substance. In their 15-dimensionality, they are the Holy Trinity. In the 14-dimensional, they are the vast living cube and sphere projection, the cube and sphere of Alpha the Omega. Below the 14-dimensionality is creation, our creation. The equivalent color of substance is yellow. The intelligent breath is red, the Father. Their sons and daughter, the only begotten sons and daughter, is energy, and they are blue. By a causeless cause of their respective vibration, the intelligent breath and tiny particles of substance both dwell. The vibration of breath and tiny particles were both originally high beyond measure, so high as to be the absolute equivalent of an absolute flat-line stasis, and silence indeed was upon the face of the deep. But by causeless entropy, the frequencies of the two vibrations were always gradually falling and gradually falling. Looking upwards past the flat-line status, there was no limit to how fast the vibratory rates might once have been recurring. Looking backward past the current status, there was no limit to how far back the vibration might always have been occurring. Over the countless eternities of countless eternities of countless eternities of the silences passing, the vibratory rates continued to gradually fall and gradually fall. Eventually, as the frequencies finally began to open up, the flatline status began to give way to ephemeral vestiges of irregularities, which beginning to appear within the stoic flatline vestiges. Over countless, uncounted infinities more of these vestiges passing, the vibratory rates continue to gradually decrease and gradually decrease, making more and more of the shimmering irregularities possible as the flatline status began to give way to the changes. And eternities after eternities of the whispering past, and the shimmering threshold gradually became to give way to more and more distinct patterns of vibratory patterns appearing within the original statics, contingencies, second and third generations beat frequencies, and other harmonic presences began forming slowly as each successive lower and lower range of composite frequency gradually became more and more unfolded. In the continuing eternities of the continuing eternities, after continuing emergences passing, more and more of the slowly emerging vibrational possibilities became established as their vibratory rates continued to gradually fall. And gradually fall as more and more vibrational vestiges gradually began to appear throughout the whole range of vibrations, from the very bottom to the very top, by beat frequencies, generations, and subharmonic formulations. As each new vibrational stage would gradually reach, the interacting vibrational possibilities gradually started forming more and more patterns of complex overtones within the newly forming vibrational patinas, not possible within the original undifferentiated flatline status. As the vibratory rates gradually slowed enough, and the newly emerging patinas of subharmonics and modulations started becoming distinct enough, the first appearances of frequency mixedness giving rise to that called consciousness gradually began to make their appearances within the ever gradually increasing complexity of the vibrational mores. In the eternal antiquities of the beginning of awakenings, as the great evening pour of darkness frequencies gradually continue falling ever lower and ever lower, the gradually increasing consciousness capabilities of both the breath and the tiny particles gradually became organized into stronger and stronger formulations of respective emerging coherencies. Through possessive nature of its vibration, the slowly awakening consciousness of the breath began to bear the characteristic of intelligence and capacity of thought. Through the standing wave of nature of its vibration, the slowly awakening consciousness of tiny particles gradually began to bear the collective characteristic of substance and the capacity of feeling. Finally, at the dawning of awakening, the breath started becoming aware of itself, and the tiny particles started becoming aware of itself, beginning reality. As the frequencies continued to inevitably fall and inevitably fall, the intelligent breath eventually came to realize it was an intelligence whose nature was male. The tiny particles of substance came to realize it was substance whose nature was female. The consciousness of the intelligence thought, the consciousness of sustenance was. As the eons continued unfolding and unfolding, the intelligence began to call himself Alpha, and the substance came to call herself Omega. Within his newfound awareness, Alpha thought and thought for eons upon eons upon eons upon eons before discovering the presence of Omega at night within darkness. In that discovery, a newfound spark of recognition was lit within the consciousness of Alpha. This newfound spark was light created. From out of darkness came light, and from this light was eventually begot the only begotten son and daughter, the goddess and gods. As the mutual consciousness continued to expand and continue to expand over the countless eternities of the eternities passing, Alpha and Omega continued to gradually come into the full understanding of each other and of each other's presence, who finally came to understand the scope of each other's existence and that they were absolutely equal and absolutely different essences. But they were of equal and absolutely different essence of being. Alpha was intelligence and Omega was substance. Even as the mutual understanding of each other continued to expand and expand, the net respective vibrational frequencies continued to slow, decrease and decrease, who eventually came to see that from out of their causeless formulations, a simple but binding logical conundrum was working against them, namely, that while no limit exists as how high a frequency of vibration can go, there is a limit to how far down a frequency can come. For a frequency equals the wave speed c over the wavelength lambda. A frequency which is at infinite number of vibrational per seconds can also be at infinitely times an infinity higher than that without limit. A vibration which is vibrating at the rate of one vibration per infinity times an infinity number of seconds is still a vibration. When the vibratory rates fall to zero, the vibration ceases to exist. So frequency equals the wavelength over the 2 times pi, and t equal the period's hertz. So the alpha and omega had finally come to see how their whole vibrational range has been slowly, inexorably sliding down the scale of all possible vibrational ratings, slowly falling and slowly inexorably towards zero. And they saw how their causeless slow descent into oblivion would continue to unabated for eternity after eternity after eternity after eternity until they would eventually sigh out of existence altogether for having more and more vibrations. And they had also come to understood that their slowly descending respective pool of frequency had come to fall into a vibratory rates where the frequency giving rise to their consciousness had eventually slowly acted into existence. And liking that to the manner in which the musical notes middle C occurs at one and only musical vibrations, the current level of vibrations comprised of one and only unique range of all possible frequencies where their current consciousness vibrations could exist. That their mutual consciousness would only be in existence at one and current range of unique vibrational possibility. Their consciousness could have not existed above the current rate because the frequencies would have been too high, and that their consciousness would not slowly start to fade back out of existence once their vibrational rates start to falling below the current range of frequencies, because the vibration would start becoming too low. And they saw that their current vibrational range of frequency has expanded enough to have become able to separate into 18 different lower and lower harmonic octaves, comprising their whole net composite of frequencies and consciousness, and that by way of the octaves, specific demarcation of their frequencies had become a possibility as that which you call dimensions. And they saw that from out of the whole exorable gradually descending rate of their vibrations, from their highest original rate in their causeless origins down to their final inevitable end, the current rate of vibrational occurrences provide one and only unique opportunity for reconfiguring themselves from out of their ill-fated causeless descending vibratory conditions into an alternative vibratory rate that will no longer be subject to the causeless degrade, by which they could end their inevitable slide into oblivion forever by becoming forever conscious eternal living being. I think the gods' mythology called them the Titans. So these creators, who spent aeons upon aeons upon aeons upon aeons trying different ways of converting themselves from out of this great even pool of darkness before coming across one that worked. The one that worked was by extracting the principles of the interfused heart or hexagonal manner of the great even pool of darkness into working elements with their consciousness called rulings, forged with the frequency of their now newfound light, the Star of David, sort of, where instilling the commonality to the erection of the omega's particles standing waves by the rulings, the particles could be precipitated into manifested forms within their lower dimensional octaves. The dimension manifestation could be used as stepping stone to eventually convert an entity of their falling frequency as a single event into a single consolidated form of themselves, which be everlasting. The Alpha and Omega began their plan by harmonizing their two different frequencies into one. Utilizing the frequencies of the newfound light, convert the frequencies of the original intelligent breath and tiny particles of substance into externalized form of pure intelligence and pure substance in which directionalities of the particle standing wave were ironed out in the same directions. Using the newly externalized form of intelligence and substance to form creation. using in creation to gradually convert themselves from out of the great even force of darkness into the form everlasting. The original frequencies of the intelligent breath and tiny particles of substance, though interfused, were not cross-connected with the even force of darkness. No contact of any kind exists between the frequency of breath and frequency of the particles, which were originally absolutely oblivious to each other. The first ever direct contacts made between their two originally absolute different potentialities across interfusions, and able to recognition of the alpha, produced this newfound light within the consciousness of alpha. As the consciousness of alpha had originally gradually expanded, it had eventually encountered the consciousness of omega standing hard, accompanying within darkness. In the instant of encounter within the consciousness of alpha, the two potentialities made first ever direct contact in the first ever interfusion between the two opposing potentialities. The absolute contrast between these two potentialities short-circuited instantly, bursting forth with the consciousness of alpha as the spark of light created. Then there was light. This newfound process in consciousness is called recognition. The burst light within the consciousness of alpha alerted him to the presence of the unfamiliar vibration of omega's consciousness standing present within his consciousness. In becoming aware of her frequencies, alpha sought the source and eventually discovered the presence of omega standing hard within the darkness. Through alpha's discovery of omega, omega became aware of the existence of alpha. In becoming mutually aware of each other, the two were eventually able to mutually communicate. Alpha and omega's overall plan was conjugated around an all-new four-way family principle. They called Gilead as the father, mother, daughter, and son. Initiation of the principle alpha embellishes frequency with the mutually formulated workings of a father and omega, embellish hers with the mutually formulated workings of a mother. This produced light, but only for being reflective and not actually frequencies of breath and particles in and of themselves, whereas an image captured and not degradable, incorruptible. Standing as the form of everlasting, before their two original potentialities degraded past the point where the occurrences of light itself would no longer be possible, omega then created a parallel light image within her consciousness as a comparable total recognition of alpha. Alpha then embellished the light with his consciousness within the mutual formulation of a son, and omega embellished the one within hers with the mutual formulations of a daughter. The unique combination of opposing frequency of father and mother, plus the cross-made frequency of sons and daughter, produce an all-new purified form of light in a workable form which provide unlimited scope for unlimited expansion. Overall plan was alpha, with the assistance of omega, was able to expand the frequencies of their new-made son-daughter aspect into a new permanent bridge between them in terms of the aspect. The bridge allowed their consciousness to be combined in a way that the new-made consciousness of their son-daughter was an additional permanent link across the interfusion between them, based on the permanent frequencies of the new-made light, and would never degrade. They were able to develop an attribute for the new consciousness called energy. The sons and daughter are the energy. They elevate the newly begotten son-daughter consciousness and newly begotten energy attribute into the modus operandi. The frequencies of the original intelligent breath and tiny particles of substance could be converted into the mainly new frequencies of intelligent substance within the frequencies of light that would be externalized and never lost. Even as that even pose itself was far too vast to convert as a single moment, the plan was to consolidate their tiny particles of substance in smaller amount of purified light version of substance called manifestations. Continue that manifestations, consolidations, until all of their tiny particles ended up as one single consolidated manifestation of absolutely pure substance, as likened as the breath as only one breath. The consolidation would be accomplished through the accomplice of their newly begotten sons and daughter, consciousness and energy attribution through a process called creativity. The project of their creativity would be called creation. Creation could be expanded and expanded and expanded and expanded and expanded until sufficient animus was developed to allow them to convert their remaining even pool of darkness itself into a permanent, everlasting self as a single all-encompassing event. The plan was proposed by Alpha and accepted by Omega in an absolute agreement of consciousness within the 15-dimensional octave. The agreement was consummated by an absolute unification of consciousness between them by agreeing to be equal. They are different, unique, but equal. The agreement formed a permanent 15-dimensional arc in consciousness between them. This new made arc of consciousness connected the frequencies of their two disparate consciousness together with a 15-dimensional octave of frequency as a bridge. The absolute acceptance of equality was necessary to ensure every possible original vibrational variance between them was accounted for in the making, else the two frequencies could not be absolutely paired, and the plan would eventually stop working because of imbalances. Bridge comprised the permanent presence of light between the two respective consciousnesses. As all their frequencies were accounted for in the agreement, newly ceased light was an absolute pure form of light for unincorporating all their frequencies in the making. The alpha mirror within the alpha and the omega mirror within the omega. By cause of the original interfusion in the eight great even pool, the two frequencies remain inseparably linked across the bridge. As pulsating vibrations spread out and standing wave vibrations stay put, the pulsating vibration of father moved towards the standing wave vibration of the mother as a projective, and the standing wave vibration of the mother received the pulsating vibration of the father is receptive as the absolute intention to create. The intention projected from the consciousness of the father is an absolute aspect known as will, was accepted by the consciousness of the mother in the absolute aspect known as desire. By the principle, the intention set up in the form of a continuing movement of consciousness between them is called motivation. The newly made consciousness of the son and daughter was then respectively set on either side the original link in consciousness between alpha and omega. Coupled together, sons and daughter is a second bridge. Alpha and Omega then mutually harmonize their threefold potentialities to become the pure triune conscious essence of being known as the Holy Trinity, Father, Mother, only begotten sons and daughter. The newly combined frequencies, having been forged within the frequencies of newly ceased light, would never degrade. This new-found third consciousness, begotten sons and daughter, was all that was ever needed to fulfill their plan. They are the action. Using their motive, will, and desire, Alpha and Omega extricated the new-formed polarities apart from each other by sending them across the second bridge with the respective frequencies of their sons and daughters. Positive polarity was set within the consciousness of the sons and daughter, the son, and the negative polarities were set within the consciousness of the daughter. Hence, this twin or sons and daughter is one, but opposite, positive, negative. Though self-compatibility within its polarities, each polarity has an absolute affinity for itself, because absolutely no vibration of one polarity exists within the other. The two stood starkly in absolute opposition to each other. Hence, sibling rivalry you see today. So the original implied causes interfusion between the two polarities were not lost in the extraction. Rather, it is converted into a resolute elastic pull between the two in the form of magnetic attraction called love. The attraction drew the pulsating positive vibration towards the negative standing wave vibration as projective. The negative standing wave vibration received the pulsating vibration as receptive. Alpha and Omega attributed the newly made magnetic attraction is the newly made attribution for the newly begotten son and daughter called energy. And they raised this energy into absolute power of its absolute potential. And the Alpha Omega then combined the frequencies of the opposition between these two polarities within the frequencies of their movement of consciousness as yet another newly made magnetic counterpart working within the consciousness of the sons and daughter called electromagnetic flux. This flux acts as the pressure between the polarities. Then the pressure pushed the polarities apart as expansion, counteracting the magnetic pull between polarities because of the attraction. The working of the flux were given to the sons and daughters as their joint motivational movement consciousness between them called responsibility. The amount of responsibility flux was governed by the amount of their motivational movement of consciousness. The greater the motivation, the more the flux, the more the polarities pushed apart. The less their motivation, the more polarities pulled apart because of the attraction. These flux appeared as a forms of lines of force between the polarities. The greater lines of force, the greater the pressure, the greater the expansion, and vice versa. The presence of lines of force served to overcome the magnetic pull between the polarities. So the net result was the self-affinity, like polarities attract. Because of electromagnetic flux within the movement of consciousness, the sons and daughters associated the original native opposition between the polarities opposites upheld. So by principle, the responsibility taken by the sons and daughters became government over expansion. The more their responsibility taken, the greater their movement of consciousness and the greater the expansion. The less the responsibility taken, the less their movement of consciousness and greater the attraction. To initiate this newly made energy into action, Alpha and Omega extended the original pure triune thought capability of Alpha into a newly made thought capability within the Holy Trinity self as a whole. The capability was accomplished through a four-way square of consciousness, liking the Father, Son, Daughter, and Mother working together harmoniously as one. The compromise of the crossed original will and desire movement of consciousness of the Father and Mother with the EM magnetic flux movement of consciousness of the begotten sons and daughter. The will and desire movement of consciousness then set up between the Father and Mother corner of the square. The EM flux movement of consciousness was set up between the sons and daughters corner of the square. In depiction, the respective polarities are included for reference. The father moved towards the mother, the son moved towards the daughter, forming an X square. The original motivation between the father and mother conducted its intention to create. The derived motivation between sons and daughter is the responsibility to create. The motivation between the mother and father was a constant absolute. The sons and daughters variable according with their responsibility chosen, taken. So the greater consciousness resolve of the sons and daughters strengthened the EM flux. The greater became the resulting consciousness intensity of the will and desire between the father and mother to create. The configuration within the square comprised a newly made state of consciousness called mind. This is the figure. F is the father, M is the mother, S is the daughter, son, D is the daughter. Mind acted as a gating device. So the greater the combined motivation within the mind state, the greater the pressure. By asking their sons and daughters to take on more or less responsibility in any given instance, the mechanism controlled the intensity of the overall father-mother consciousness motivation by the amount of responsibility taken by the sons and daughter aspect. The newly made mind state functioned as a newly made stream of consciousness called thinking. The The thinking occurred as a continuous discrete segment of motivation according to each specific responsibility taken by the only begotten sons and daughter. The discrete segment of motivation was called thought. Thought enabled the Holy Trinity to impart an overall discretely varying effect upon expansion called action. How much responsibility was taken by the sons and daughter determined how much of the will and desire of the father and mother would become expressed as their action. As expanded thought process called thinking, energy become enabled into action under absolute control of Alpha and Omega's three-way trinity in unity of consciousness. And the absolute potential of the absolute father, absolute mother, absolute sons and daughter essences of being had become harnessed into an everlasting, encompassing, absolute three-way harmonious activity called creativity. Alpha and Omega has become the creators. So by asking their sons and daughters to take on responsibility by choice, rather than making them do it unconditionally, the sons and daughters were free to accept their responsibility or not in the absolute principle known as free will. Will is active, desire is passive. By letting the sons and daughters want to accept and were given responsibility rather than to want to made to do it by dictum, the passive aspect of desire was assured equal presence within their will, within the responsibilities taken as proper balance of will and desire. And by ensuring absolute balance of will and desire in every responsibility taken, absolute integrity of the square of consciousness remained intact. The original plan of Alpha and Omega called for outer manifestation of their intelligence, energy, and substance attribute to be expressed as creation. After the original falling of frequencies of the great even pool of darkness eventually factor into the 18 octaves of the current frequency range of Alpha and Omega, the octaves was set up as a working environment for their intended creation by establishing specific demarcation of their net consciousness and frequencies in each octave as that which you call dimensions. So, with the Alpha and Omega, with Earth's root race is to learn. The rest of you are to refurbish as part of the problem or part of the solution. The prevailing problem on Earth today is not that most of you descendants believe that you are ascendants, and most of you ascendants don't know the difference. Earth's population is currently aligning with religion. Most of today's Asian root race favors Buddhism, that being the closest to your level of light. Many of you in the voluntary are attracted to so-called New Age teaching, being the closest in any kind to your inner proclivities. Others of you seek Eastern mysticism because of the sensitivity to your higher calling. Most of the remaining populations are attuned to the flavors of Christianity or traction religions like Islam, Muslim, Judaism. Some of the Hindustan is a hybrid of Christianity and planetary law. Who founded the Essenes also said as the Buddha. The original Buddhistic teaching were quickly eroded back to Atlantean concepts because of much less responsibility needed to be taken. An easier road to be taken. You are still arrested at the frequency of 108, bearing direct ties back to the condition of the planetary lord left after the falls of Atlantis. Volunteers casted dragons and Adamics notwithstanding, Christ put the responsibility for clearing each of your consciousness squarely upon your own shoulders to love and service in the right directions. Religion has taken it back off. Those of you who are wait for your Christ to solve your problem, wait forever. Ask not what Christ can do for you. Ask what you can do for Christ. Those of you who blame God for your problem, blame yourself twice. Islamic and similar worlds can't realign in their present profile. Christ is not the centers. Rules of conduct are the conveyance instead of home back to the days before Christ. The Messiah is not just for the favored few. Misunderstanding arising from the fact that the Jewish culture was groomed as the crucible. Those of you who wait for a lighted candle for Messiah to come, predisposed to yourself, will be disappointed in the same moment as the stunned zealots who hope nothing changes. Those of you who are ready and waiting with open hearts for Christ to return to serve with love and service will be justified in the glorification. There is no personal devil. The devil is the conglomerate lesser condition of mankind looking towards an excuse. God is the conglomerate greater faith of mankind looking towards the greatest Alpha and Omega. 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ showed us who you are, what you are, and where you're going. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Now is the time to put the laws into practice. There is not time left. Earth has crossed the threshold. Those of you who wait will have to do it again and again and again. The Alpha and Omega is all there is. In their unexpressed self they are without form or formality as the great even pool of darkness. In their inner expressive self they are the Holy Trinity. In their outer expressed cube and spirit self they are pure intelligence, pure energy, pure substance. In their whole outer expression they are creation. Without cause they are the great even pool of darkness comprising of intelligent breath and tiny particles of substance. The silence was upon the face of the deep. In the antiquity of the silences, the intelligent breath eventually became aware of itself, and tiny particles of substance eventually became aware of itself, who called themselves Alpha and Omega, Father, Mother, Intelligence, and Substance. In the aeons past, each became aware of the other, and within that awareness was light created. Eventually realized they were of absolutely equal and absolutely opposite essence of being. And from their recognition of the light awakened, they realized yet another potential of themselves and heard the third voice speak. The voice they knew to be their only begotten sons and daughter. And they knew it yet was another conscious aspect of themselves, and knew it would be a new attribute. They called this attribute energy. And in that triune chorus they knew they were the whole sound and perfect absolute Holy Trinity of Father, Mother, Sons, Daughter, and they were complete. They consummated their equality in consciousness, beginning the only begotten sons and daughter, and from this triune beginning they made their first projected outcome of themselves in a great even pool as a living atom, cube, and sphere. Their first projected absolute Alpha, our Father, is a vast sphere of pure intelligence. Omega, our Mother, is a vast cube of pure intelligence, substance. Christ is the only begotten sons and daughter, is the vast wide factor hidden in the cube, and the daughter, sons and daughter. The radiant absolute eminence they are beatific. In their expanding beatific radiations they are creation. In the 18 to first dimensionalities they are the great even pool. In their first expanded projection within themselves, within the great pool, they are the isles of paradise. In the second expanded projection of themselves within the great even pool, they are the seven master spirits of creation. In the third to sixth expanded projection of themselves within the great pool, they are the inner creation. And in the seventh expanded projection of self within the great pool, they are the eighth dimension. Beyond that is the outer creation. And the third and final expanding projection of themselves within the great even pool, their expansion will be complete. By the projected living soul atom particles of themselves, the conversion of their great even pool of darkness self into an everlasting triune absolute being is undergoing. By their order they work their darkness into light. The attributes of the Alpha are the Father, male, positive, objective will. The Omega as the Mother, Father, Mother, female, negative, receptive, desire. The only begotten sons, daughter are sons and daughter, male, female, unity and action.